My wife used to love reading The Domineering CEO Falls in Love with Me when she was young. Now, she's obsessed with Trump Fell in Love with Me, The White House Janitor, In Pursuit of True Love. 40-year-old Willow resolutely broke up with me to start a May-December romance with Makoto, the 23-year-old heir of the Ito family. She thought I would cling to her desperately, refusing to let go. Little did she expect that I would simply smile, agree immediately, and take my daughter to leave without hesitation. Later, when she found out I had won $50 million in the lottery, she cried and begged to be my one and only janitor. Chapter 1. Let's get a divorce. My wife, Willow, sat on the couch and suddenly announced. At that moment, I was in the kitchen, washing the dishes after dinner. It was the middle of winter, and my hands were turning pale from the cold water. Hearing her words, I frowned. What kind of nonsense is she up to this time? We've been married for over 20 years, long enough to be considered an old married couple. But even after all this time, she still had a flair for drama. Thinking back, it made sense. When she was younger, she was obsessed with The Domineering CEO Falls in Love with Me. Now, she's completely hooked on Trump Falls in Love with the White House Janitor and can't help himself. I wiped my hands dry and walked out of the kitchen. Watching her scroll through short dramas on her phone, I asked, "What is it this time? What did I do to upset you again? Why are you suddenly asking for a divorce?" Willow and I were like many couples from our generation. When we got married, she had told me, "I'm marrying you, but that doesn't mean I'm here to be your maid." So, after our wedding, I was the one who earned the money, did the housework, and raised our child. And I wasn't allowed to complain about it either. If I ever showed the slightest sign of frustration, she would throw my own words back at me. "Are you regretting it now? Weren't you the one who said you'd treat me like a princess, that you'd accept my bad temper no matter what?" She used those promises like a shield. Anytime something in life didn't go her way, she'd lash out at me, threatening to leave. But at least in the past, she always had some kind of excuse. I was sure I hadn't done anything to provoke her recently. So why was she suddenly bringing up divorce out of nowhere? Willow, however, showed no intention of explaining. She didn't even look up from her phone, speaking impatiently. "There's no reason. I just want a divorce. That's all." She furrowed her brows and continued. "A divorce is a divorce. Why does there have to be some big reason? I just don't want to waste my life with a loser like you anymore. If you agree, I'll leave with nothing, no money, no assets, nothing." Now I was truly at a loss. I stared at her and said firmly, "If you can't give me a proper reason, I won't agree to the divorce." It wasn't like before. These days, both parties had to agree for a divorce to go through. As long as I refused, Willow wouldn't be able to leave, no matter what she did. She clearly hadn't expected me to be this stubborn. Her expression darkened, and after a brief moment of hesitation, she seemed to make up her mind. She stood up and enunciated each word clearly. "Do you really want me to say it out loud? These past 20 years with you have been the most miserable years of my life. Now that our daughter is grown up, I deserve to chase after my own love and happiness." Her words left me stunned. For a moment, I didn't even know how to react. "What did you just say? Your love?" Chapter 2. Willow shot me a look of utter disdain, as if she had finally rid herself of a 20-year-long shackle. Her entire demeanor lightened, as though she had been set free. She sneered sharply. "In all these years of marriage, have you ever given me a single day of comfort? Look at yourself. No money, no skills, nothing to offer except a stable job. You're absolutely worthless. Now, look at my best friend's husband. He earns millions every month and takes her on luxurious vacations around the world. And you can't even buy me an LV bag without whining about the price. If it weren't for my parents forcing me to marry you back then, do you think I would have ever chosen a man like you?" The more she spoke, the angrier she became. With a swift kick, she sent the trash can beside the table flying, spilling garbage across the floor. "I've been saying it for years. I can't stand being with you, and our daughter, too. All she does is cry all day long, dumb and ugly. Nothing like me. Just looking at her makes me sick." I was stunned. I had never imagined that my wife despised me this much. Not only me, but even the daughter she carried for 10 months in her womb. A cold sensation crept through my body as I muttered, "She's your daughter. How could you say that about her?" Willow screamed hysterically. "Do you think I ever wanted to have a child? I only had her because of you. I never wanted a daughter. Once we divorce, she's all yours." Since she was little, my daughter had never been particularly close to Willow. Instead, she always clung to me. I used to think it was just because I spoiled her too much, but now I understood. Maybe she had sensed it all along. Maybe she had always known that her mother never truly wanted her. Willow, still staring at her phone, said bitterly, "I'm already in my 40s. I spent the first half of my life listening to my parents, living with a man I never loved. Now, I want to pursue my own happiness. I don't want a single cent from you. Just hurry up and sign the divorce papers." At that moment, something clicked in my mind. My expression darkened, and a surge of uncontrollable rage bubbled up inside me. Clenching my teeth, I spat out, "You're cheating. aren't you? All this talk about pursuing happiness, there had to be someone else. Willow lifted her gaze and looked me straight in the eye. Yes, I am. So what? Willow felt no shame at all. Instead, she righteously shouted. Can you stop being so chauvinistic? Is your mind stuck in those outdated feudal thoughts? I don't think cheating is anything to be ashamed of. What did I do wrong? I just didn't ask for a divorce at the right time. That's all. Besides, I've only been with him for a few days, while I've spent my whole life with you. And now you're cursing me like this. How are you any different from a beast? My mind was about to explode with fury. Without thinking, I swung my hand. Smack. The slap landed hard across her face. Willow stumbled back, clutching her cheek, looking at me in shock and disbelief. A wave of dizziness washed over me, my vision blurring. My chest heaved with anger, and for a moment, I thought I might pass out. Just then, the front door burst open. My daughter rushed in, tears streaming down her face. She grabbed my arm, sobbing. Dad, are you okay? Please don't get too worked up. I snapped out of my daze and reached out to touch her face. She was actually quite beautiful, just slightly chubby from adolescence. I never understood why Willow always belittled her. But more importantly, she was my daughter, the child I had raised and cherished. Even if she weren't conventionally pretty, how could I ever stop loving her? Through her tears, she turned to Willow and cried out, I know. I've always known. You never loved me. Every time we went out, you refused to admit I was your daughter. Do you think I wanted a mother like you? A mother who hates me? Being questioned like this by her daughter, Willow instantly lost her temper. She yelled, You've been spoiled by your father. That's why you dare talk to me like this. How did I end up giving birth to a daughter who worships men and despises women? Your mother is a victim of domestic violence, and instead of comforting me, you side with that biological father of yours. You're just an ungrateful little traitor. With that, she raised her hand and swung toward my daughter's face. Without thinking, I grabbed her wrist midair. My grip tightened, and with a sharp shove, I sent her stumbling backward. Chapter 3. Enough, I roared, my voice shaking with fury. You're the one in the wrong, and yet you still have the audacity to insult our child. You want a divorce? Fine, but bring the pathetic excuse of a man here and let him say it to my face. Hiding behind a woman, what kind of coward does that? I must have looked truly terrifying at that moment. Bloodshot eyes, veins bulging on my forehead, my entire body tense with rage. It was the kind of anger that could make a man do something reckless. Willow finally realized she had pushed too far. She huffed and crossed her arms. Fine, I'll bring him. But listen, if you dare lay a hand on him, I'll make sure you regret it. With that, she grabbed her phone and purse and stormed out of the house. As soon as the door slammed shut, silence filled the room. I looked around at the wreckage in our living room, garbage spilled on the floor, my daughter still sniffling, and an overwhelming sadness washed over me. I sighed. Sweetheart, don't cry anymore. This is all because your father is useless. To my surprise, my daughter wiped her tears away and shook her head firmly. No, Dad, this is absolutely not your fault. I've thought it through. Since she looks down on me, since she never saw me as her daughter, then from now on, I don't need to see her as my mother either. Dad, don't be sad. I'll study hard, and one day, I'll take care of you. Hearing her words, a warmth filled my heart, softening the ache in my chest. I let out a heavy breath and patted her head. Good girl. I didn't spoil you for nothing. But then I shook my head, my voice filled with regret. Still, how does a family just fall apart like this? Anna thought for a moment, then suddenly narrowed her eyes. Dad, don't you think this is strange? Why did she suddenly bring up divorce out of nowhere? And why is she so eager to leave with nothing? Not even fighting for a single penny. Mom's always been cunning. There's no way it's that simple. She was right. Something wasn't adding up. If Willow really wanted out, she could have pushed for a clean, quiet divorce. But instead, she made a scene, rushed the process, and insisted on leaving everything behind. I murmured under my breath, could there be something urgent, something forcing her to get divorced immediately? That's when Anna's eyes lit up with realization. I remember now. She gasped. Yesterday, she asked me to buy a lottery ticket for her. The winning numbers were announced today. She quickly dug into her bag and pulled out a crumpled ticket. A while ago, Mom told me to buy a ticket for her, so I bought one for myself too. Mom's numbers ended in her birthday, and mine ended in yours. And guess what? The one with your birthday won first prize, 50 million. I rushed home from school to tell you both the good news, but just as I got to the door, I heard you two fighting. A chilling thought struck me. Anna, I asked urgently, when you bought your ticket, did you put your mom's phone number on it? She blinked, then nodded hesitantly, and just like that, everything clicked into place. The lottery notification had gone straight to Willow's phone. She must have checked it before coming home, convinced she had hit the jackpot. I let out a low chuckle. No wonder she was so eager, willing to leave with nothing, desperate to rush the divorce. She thought she had won $50 million, The prize had a 60-day claim period, and with the mandatory 30-day cooling-off period for divorces. If she was still married when she claimed it, half the money would legally belong to me. She had been so paranoid about me finding out that she exposed her affair just to make sure I'd let her go. What she didn't realize was that the real winning ticket belonged to the very daughter she had always despised. A grin spread across my face. All the anger from before faded like mist in the morning sun. I pulled Anna into a tight hug and laughed. Anna, your mother has no idea what she's lost. You're my lucky star. This divorce, oh, it's happening, and I can't wait to see what kind of man she's been so desperate to throw her life away for. Sure enough, the very next day, Willow arrived with her new lover. The moment I saw him, I couldn't help but feel a little pity. The guy looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, shaky posture, and a clear lack of vitality. He had definitely been overworked in every sense of the word, but despite looking like a half-dead husk of a man, he had the nerve to puff out his chest and smirk at me with an air of arrogance. Old man, how does it feel to be cheated on and still play the fool? He sneered. A pathetic loser like you should know, only the strong deserve to have women. You're nothing. What could you possibly do against me? Chapter 4. Before I could say anything, my daughter furiously shouted. Stop being so shameless. If we're talking about useless people, is there anyone more worthless than you? At least my dad is a real man who stands tall, unlike you, pretending to be some rich heir, when in reality, you're just a gigolo living off old women. You could only fool my mom, but just look at yourself, you're practically wasting away. Even if you had money, you wouldn't live long enough to spend it. Sooner or later, you'll drop dead, and people will be playing trumpets at your funeral. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. Anna was usually bright and cheerful, always polite. This was the first time I had ever seen her curse someone out, and she was brutal. She must have been absolutely livid, but knowing she was this angry for me didn't make her words sting. If anything, it warmed my heart. The young man, Makoto, was livid. His face twisted in rage as he lunged toward my daughter, raising a hand to hit her. Like hell I'd let that happen. I immediately stepped between them and kicked him square in the chest, sending him staggering backward. Glaring at him, I growled, I'm still alive, you little punk. Let's see who dares lay a hand on my daughter. Willow had stayed silent while Makoto nearly hit Anna, but the moment I retaliated, she rushed to his side, fussing over him like he was some precious treasure. Makoto, are you okay? She cried. She didn't spare a single glance at our daughter. Then she turned to me, her face full of hostility. You've seen him now. Sign the divorce papers already. Looking at her, I felt nothing but suffocation. She was the one in the wrong. She had betrayed our family, and yet, she stood there, glaring at me and our daughter like we were the villains. People say parents can do no wrong, but that's a lie. Some people simply don't deserve to be parents. Meanwhile, children have no choice. From the moment they're born, they love their parents unconditionally, even after everything. Anna's voice wavered with hope as she asked, Mom, this will be the last time I ever call you Mom. Do you really not want me at all? Am I not the daughter you carried for 10 months? Her words stabbed into my heart. Anna had always been a thoughtful child. Even when she was little, she would bring us water after work, use her tiny fists to massage our shoulders. She had always tried so hard to win Willow's love, but no matter what she did, her mother remained distant. It had taken me months to reassure her, to convince her that Willow wasn't cold-hearted, just bad at expressing her emotions. Turns out, Anna had been right all along. Willow really did despise her, and she hated me just as much. Yet when faced with our daughter's trembling voice, Willow showed no guilt, no regret, only irritation. So what? She snapped coldly. You were born from a loveless marriage. Why would I ever want to look at you? I've already done my duty raising you. Do you have any idea how disgusting it is for me to see you every day? Every time I look at you, I want to strangle you. I want to strangle your father, too. Living with you two has been nothing but torture. But now, I'm finally free. Thank God. Anna's entire body trembled. Her face turned deathly pale, her lips quivering as she tried, and failed, to say anything in response. My blood boiled over. I grabbed the nearest glass of water and threw it in Willow's face. Shut the hell up. You don't deserve to be called a mother. Who do you think you are to look down on our daughter? You think we don't despise you? You carried her for 9 months, but you never raised her, never loved her, and yet you act like you're the victim. Before she could react, I snatched the divorce papers off the table. Where's the damn agreement? Give it to me, I'll sign it right now. And you better remember, you leave with nothing. Not a single cent. Willow stared at me, her chest heaving, fury and humiliation warring in her expression. After a moment, she yanked the papers from her purse and slapped them onto the table. But even then, she couldn't resist sneering. You think I care about your measly money? I've had enough of your pathetic, broke-ass life. If anything, you and Anna should be paying me for all the years I wasted on you two. I gave her a warning glare. Willow, don't push your luck. I've already agreed to this divorce. Take your boy toy and get out of my house before I decide to slap the hell out of you. Maybe it was the look in my eyes. Or maybe she sensed that I had reached my breaking point. Whatever it was, she finally shut up. She scoffed, grabbed Makoto, and stormed out the door. The second they were gone, I turned to Anna and pulled her into my arms. Don't be sad, sweetheart. She's the one losing out. You're the best thing that ever happened to this family. I grinned. Besides, just wait. Sooner or later, they'll be broke, starving on the streets, and we'll make sure to eat delicious food right in front of them. Of course, even with nothing, those two probably wouldn't actually end up homeless. But Anna still burst into laughter at the image. She hugged my arm, her eyes bright with mischief. Deal. Once we cash in the ticket, you don't have to work anymore, Dad. We'll travel the country together. Then she smirked, and we'll post all our vacation pictures just to rub it in their faces. Chapter 5. I couldn't help but laugh along with my daughter, already daydreaming about our future. 50 million. Even after taxes, that was still 40 million in our pockets. I had spent my whole life working tirelessly, yet I had barely saved up a fraction of that amount. The idea of having millions was so foreign to me that my mind could only grasp the simplest luxuries, buying a house, a car. Still, out of caution, I didn't quit my job right away. After all, anything could happen with the lottery, and I wanted to be prepared just in case. Meanwhile, Willow and Makoto spent the entire month living extravagantly. They partied, traveled, and splurged like they had an endless fortune to burn. But since Willow had left with nothing, all their expenses came from Makoto's wallet. Time flew by, and soon, the mandatory cooling-off period for our divorce was over. On the day of the final signing, I took Anna with me to the civil affairs office. As expected, Willow and Makoto were already there, eyes practically glowing with excitement. I could tell exactly what they were thinking. Once this divorce is finalized, we'll be free to cash in the jackpot. I smirked and said, Willow, are you sure about this? There's no turning back. She scoffed, crossing her arms as she glared at Anna and me. Regret? I will never regret this. She spat. If I ever regret this, may I be struck by lightning, die a miserable death, and get run over by a truck the moment I step outside. And you too, stay away from me. Don't even think about coming back to beg me for anything. I looked at her deeply and nodded. If that's what you want, then so be it. Since neither of us hesitated, the divorce was processed quickly. As we stepped out of the office, Anna and I exchanged knowing smiles. We both knew Willow's good days were just about to begin. Sure enough, after walking some distance, where there were fewer people around, Willow finally dropped her act. She couldn't contain her excitement anymore and turned to us with a triumphant smirk. Now that I have my divorce papers, I can finally tell you the truth. I won 50 million in the lottery, and Makoto and I are moving abroad to enjoy our new life. Makoto chimed in smugly. You two broke losers can stay here while we go live it up. Anna let out a mocking chuckle. Oh really? Well then, congratulations. Willow frowned. She had expected us to be shocked, envious, maybe even begging her for help. Instead, we were calm. Her smile faltered. Ha! Keep pretending. It doesn't matter. It's too late for regrets now. I subtly tugged Anna's sleeve, signaling her to hold back. No need to ruin the show just yet. Well, since we're officially divorced, what happens next is none of my business, I said coolly. Just make sure you never come looking for me again. Willow's expression shifted slightly, but she quickly regained her arrogance. As if I'd ever want to see you again. Get lost. I don't want your poor man stink anywhere near me. With that, she and Makoto turned and walked off in high spirits. The moment they were out of sight, Anna and I hurried to our car. We had planned ahead. The second our divorce was finalized, we would go straight to claim the real winning ticket before Willow even had the chance to cause trouble. Unlike her, I had no intention of letting the world know about our windfall. People say when you're poor, no one cares about you, but when you're rich, even long-lost relatives will come knocking. I had spent enough years struggling to understand how money could change people. If anyone found out, we'd be swarmed by distant relatives and old friends looking for handouts. Before leaving the house, Anna and I had already changed into different clothes, wearing hats and masks to avoid attention. It was winter, so our disguises didn't seem unusual. Had it been summer, we might have looked suspicious. We hailed a taxi, but instead of giving the lottery office's address, I asked to be dropped off at a nearby shopping mall. All the way there, neither of us spoke much. We were too afraid of jinxing it, but in reality, we were overthinking it. No one paid us any attention at all. Once we arrived, we immediately headed to claim our prize. Everything went smoothly, and just like that, 40 million, tax-free, straight into our account. Seeing all those zeros on the bank statement, Anna's eyes sparkled with excitement. She turned to me, grinning from ear to ear. We both knew our lives had just changed forever. The lottery officials even asked if we wanted to give an interview, but I declined without hesitation. No way was I putting a target on our backs. As we walked out of the building, Anna excitedly whispered about all the places she wanted to visit, all the things she wanted to buy. But just then, I spotted something in the distance. Shoo! I nudged her. Look who's here. We quickly ducked into a nearby bubble tea shop, ordering drinks while we watched the real show begin. Willow and Makoto had arrived. They strutted into the lottery office with an air of superiority, practically glowing with confidence. Slamming their ticket onto the counter, Willow declared, "We're here to claim our 50 million, and you better not mess anything up." The staff glanced at them, recognizing them from earlier. Still, the worker checked the ticket. A moment later, he looked up and said, "Congratulations, ma'am. Your ticket is indeed a winner." Willow's face lit up. "See, Makoto, I told you." But then, however, the worker continued, "Your prize amount is not 50 million. It's 500. Chapter 6. As soon as these words were spoken, Willow froze. Her face flushed red as she raised her voice. "That's impossible. Look again. I clearly got the notification text saying I won." She pulled out her phone and practically shoved it in the staff member's face. The staff member just sighed and said, "The system verification is correct, ma'am. You really didn't win the grand prize. Look closely at the last few digits on your lottery ticket. They don't match the grand prize number. Maybe you misread it." Hearing this, Willow seemed to realize something, and her face instantly turned pale. She checked over and over against the text on her phone, and at last had to face reality. The ticket she was holding wasn't the grand prize winner. Makoto panicked. He grabbed Willow's shoulders and shouted anxiously, "What's going on? Didn't you say you won 50 million? You promised to buy me a villa and a luxury car. You can't go back on your word." Willow, as if she'd lost her soul, opened her mouth but couldn't utter a sound. After a long moment, she started crying, slumping to the ground. She wailed, "I don't know either. This ticket isn't the winning one. The text message clearly said I'd won 50 million. At that, she suddenly jolted upright. "Right. My daughter also bought a ticket that day. The winning ticket must be hers. We were both fooled. They have the 50 million. No wonder they agreed to the divorce so easily." Makoto's eyes went bloodshot. He grabbed Willow roughly and snarled, "Stop wasting time. You said you'd get me a house and a car. If the money's with your husband and daughter, then go get it from them." Hearing this, the staff member looked at them with obvious contempt. Turned out it was a cheating woman and a freeloading man. No wonder they were so frantic and uncouth. Willow collapsed completely. She sobbed, "But I've already divorced him, and I got nothing in the settlement. I left him for you. Didn't you say you truly loved me and would take care of me forever, even if I had no money?" Makoto shoved her to the ground and spat. "You wish I sweet-talked you and you believed it. No money? Why would I stay with you if you've got nothing? You're over 40. Your face is full of wrinkles. It disgusts me to look at you. Damn it. I've wasted all this time sleeping with you for nothing." Not satisfied with just the insults, he pounced on Willow and started beating her, cursing between blows. "You worthless old woman. Go and get that money back for me. It's all my money, mine. I slept with you, so you owe me compensation for my suffering." When things got out of hand, the staff member quickly called security and alerted the police. The police arrived, investigated, and could only ask Willow if she wanted to forgive Makoto. Since they were a couple, if she forgave him, they might just give him a warning. Makoto, convinced Willow loved him to death, didn't take any of it seriously, but he didn't realize Willow cared about herself most of all. Everything she had done was for her own pleasure. Maybe because she was in real pain. Willow, who had once sworn she truly loved Makoto, sent him off to the station without a second thought. Sitting in the police station, Willow called my number. She wept hysterically, sobbing as she shouted, "I know I was wrong. Honey, Makoto is nothing but garbage. You're the one who truly treats me best. I beg you to forgive me. Let's remarry. I promise I'll be good to you and our daughter. I won't ever waver again." By that time, though, my daughter and I had already bought tickets for a trip to the seaside. Chapter 7. After cashing in my winnings, I immediately sent my boss a message to quit. I'd worked at that company for 10 years, only to watch my salary shrink year after year. I couldn't stand it for another day. I was clearly a veteran employee, but because I had a family, a child, and so many responsibilities, my boss had me completely under his thumb. I got stuck with the dirty, grueling work, never got overtime pay, and was constantly berated. If it weren't for wanting my daughter to get a better education and a good life, I would have quit long ago. But that's how it is for middle-aged dads. You take on so much for your kids that even if you're scolded and humiliated, you still swallow your pride. Now, though, I had 40 million in the bank. I no longer had to bow and scrape for anyone. Right after I messaged my resignation, my boss sent me a voice note. "Didn't I tell you before? You have to give a month's notice. Don't you want your salary and bonus? You're over 40, where else would hire you? The benefits I give you are already quite generous. You need to work harder. You should be grateful instead of acting like an ungrateful wolf." I laughed and replied without hesitation, "Screw you. I've had enough of your crap. You act like such a big shot every day. What do you think you are? Everyone in the company knows you only got started because of your father-in-law's money. Who the hell are you to lecture us about hard work? You dump the hardest jobs on us men. Then give all the promotions and raises to the women. How pathetic can you get? You fool around in the office with female employees. Are you running a company or a harem? I've kept plenty of evidence, and I'm about to send it to your wife, so she can see what you've been doing. You worthless scumbag doomed to have no heirs. You're going to go broke and die a miserable death. Then I blocked him, feeling more satisfied than ever. It was like a huge weight had been lifted off my chest. Almost the moment I blocked my boss, Willow called. She was crying her eyes out, apologizing, saying she regretted everything and wanted to die. My daughter grinned beside me and played a recording on her phone. It was Willow's voice saying, "Regret? I'll never regret anything in my whole life. If I ever do, may I be struck by lightning and die a horrible death, or get hit by a car the moment I step outside." Willow was the one who said all that when we were finalizing our divorce. Now it had come back like a boomerang, hitting her square in the face. Hearing that recording left her speechless, and all she could do was collapse into sobs. She'd lost her job, didn't have a house or savings, and had nowhere to go. Meanwhile, my daughter and I caught a flight to a warm seaside spot the very next day. We finally saw the ocean my daughter had wanted to visit since she was little. With money in hand, we indulged in all the things I used to consider too expensive. We tried roast suckling pig, a big seafood feast, and visited the largest theme park in Shanghai. During that time, Willow kept calling me relentlessly, but I got so fed up that I just changed my number, and finally got some peace. 6 months later, after traveling around, we came home and learned what happened to Willow and Makoto. It turned out Makoto really was a weakling, especially since he slept around and ended up contracting HIV. Willow got infected by him as well. Once she discovered the truth, she was driven to despair and stabbed Makoto more than a dozen times, causing him to die of blood loss. Then, in her frenzy to escape, she was hit by a drunk driver and died on the spot, ultimately fulfilling her own ominous vow. I felt nothing but relief. Thank goodness Willow had found me so unappealing. Otherwise, I might have ended up infected too. She once had a warm, loving family and could have enjoyed the 40 million as well. But some people are never satisfied. It all comes down to karma, I guess.